In this episode of Mighty Car Mods, we're going back to Japan to get parts, and we're going to make this Mira all-wheel drive. So it is a stinking hot day in Japan. I have found a good friend of mine who's been known for helping with Mira parts, and we are going to go and find the parts to finish this build, or at least get the car moving. Rob!
Overnight parts from Japan.
So we've got like half an hour drive or so up the mountains, and then go and see this dude and hope that he gives us some bits that we need, because he's the only guy in Japan we've been able to find that has them, right?
Yes, and he knows that, and he's giving us the price accordingly.
It seems that not many people in Japan hold on to 27-year-old K-car parts, but occasionally you get lucky because this guy is only 1 hour's drive from Rob.
Why are the roads so narrow here? Just haven't changed it for a long time? Or?
Yeah. That road's actually been widened. You can see it's been widened.
Because we're like right, look at this, we're like right on the gutter.
And then they have these roads and they have like open gutters.
Yeah.
The seller wants to meet us at the local station before taking us back to his shed.
Follow him.
This is our guy.
Yep.
This is our parts guy.
This is him.
What's he driving? Is he driving a Honda Dunk?
A Dunk.
Honda Dunk.
Turbo.
You know what's funny, Rob? It doesn't seem to matter which country you do this in, it's always kind of the same process. Some dude who's just like, yeah, follow me, there's parts.
Parts. Wow. I've been dealing with the guy for like 2 months.
Yeah?
Yeah. Sent him 6 or 7 emails at least. I've spoken to him on the phone about five or six times. What's happening? Can't get it off. I'll try and get it off this weekend. A week later, it's like, oh, sorry man, I got sick and couldn't get out there and do it. That looks similar, Marty?
Yes. Well, you'd know because you chopped them up.
It's the same.
Yeah, cool. Oh, because it's got the shock mount on the back of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's right. I definitely don't have arms that look like that.
Language English?
English. Yeah, see, he's cracked the head off the bolt there.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes.
いくらだったっけ? 4万にしてくれるかな?
4万でよろしいですよ.
I just got $50 off.
Oh, cool. So what are we paying?
Still paying
bulk.
Way too much.
Yep. But it's like only me a bit around.
Yeah. ありがとう.
ああ、どうもありがとう。こちらこそありがとう。じゃあこれ持ってってください。
はい、入れます。
はい。
ちょっと用意しますね。
ヘビ。大丈夫。
That's it. Is that in?
We in?
Yeah.
Rob's taking me to the middle of nowhere, but we have our Mira rear end parts. Finally, from the source.
We'll put it to bed.
I'm going to put it to bed. That's going to go in a container. Take some of those bits home, put the rest in a container. And not only that, I got a spare diff, which is freaking awesome.
Thank you. He said you're a nice guy.
Yeah, Rob.
Nice guy.
Nice guy.
Maybe he was talking about me.
Maybe just because we gave him
bloody hell.
$12.
Yeah.
$400 for that.
I just gave him like a week's pay for a diff.
Yeah.
He's laughing.
Even though it's the rear arms that we need to get our car rolling, having a spare diff is also a massive win, in case the original one gives up when it's being fed more power.
So finally I have my lower arms for my diff. Rob said some of the hardest parts to find in recent history for him, and being that that's what he does for a living, that says a lot, but this means our build can continue.
With my replacement parts acquired and packed into a suitcase, it's time to head home and then clean them up, ready for use. Before I get rid of the half cut for good, there's a few more bits and pieces that I need to transfer over. Stuff like wiring looms, brackets, sound deadener, brake booster, and various other bits that are way easier to swap over when both half cut and the car are next to each other. I have to remove and refit in layers, the same way they did at the factory. The accelerator cable goes under the pedal box, which goes under the dash brackets, which go under the wiring, and so on.
So now I'm off to the scrap metal yard to get rid of the half cut and all the other junk that I can't use. Brutal. And that is where your journey ends, half cut. Sorry, mate.
Next stop is Super Cheap Auto to pick up some sandblasting gear. There are bits of these old worn out parts that a wire brush isn't going to reach. Sandblasting will help, and it's got the word blasting in it, so you know it's going to be fun to do.
Sandblasting media, sandblasting gun, just stuff to put my engine on and roll it around, and a gun to paint the subframe with, because it's time for more rust removal, this time a little bit more DIY than dipping.
I have to get the engine, gearbox and transfer case off the subframe so I can repair it. It's not in nearly as bad shape as the back of the car was, and luckily for me it's modular, so I can replace the worst parts and treat and seal the bits that are savable. The shocks, brakes, drive shaft and suspension bits all have to come off, and then the rest can be jacked up off the frame with an engine crane ready for blasting. I'm using a simple gravity-fed sandblasting setup that will remove loose paint, rust and scale from the parts. They can then be rust treated, have new metal welded in if necessary, and then repainted. Sandblasting is messy and creates a lot of dust, so ideally it's done in a booth or in an area away from other people with the usual safety gear on. Just like the back of the car, I'm welding in new metal to prevent rust from spreading and ruining the K-frame. The diff housing is getting the same treatment as the front. It'll be sandblasted, wire wheeled to get any leftovers off, then treated and repainted so it lasts another quarter of a century. Once some anti-corrosion treatment has been applied, the parts are then sprayed with a high durability satin black.
A whole lot of preparation has taken place on a lot of the parts that we thought weren't wrecked, but they were wrecked, and now they're fixed, and today's a new day, so we've got a whole bunch of mad stuff to do on this mad Mira.
A whole lot of preparation, as in months. It's been months. What we're doing now is what we were meant to be doing day one, really, isn't it? Like video one.
Well, yeah.
Except then the stuff didn't fit.
No, it didn't fit, and then it was
broken,
rusted and broken, and
it's not a Yaris, is it?
What is happening though? So we are going to put our fuel tank in. We've got a
look how cute it is, everyone.
It is cute.
It's almost as small and cute as a mini fuel tank. Probably around twice the size. How many litres is this?
I reckon like 35 or 40.
Yeah.
I haven't measured it. I got no idea.
Martin, how are we going to pump fuel out of it?
We are going to pump fuel out of it using this mad DW fuel pump, which is for an Evo 10.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
Evo 10 parts going into my mad Mira, which means we'll have plenty of fuel supply. It's only a little pump, but it does massive literage, which is what matters, and mad fuel pressure.
So there's going to be fuel lines going in, fuel tank going in. We're going to have the assistance of our young friend over there.
A special guest.
Hello, mate. How you going? Come on over and say hello to the intervals, mate.
What'd you bring with you?
There's a few people that really want to see you. Hello, what have you got?
Internet.
He's got a box cutter. That's
in preparation for opening our goodies.
Oh, good.
You
excellent.
Goodies.
And then today, even though Marty said it's not going to happen, I'm just going to give you I'm not going to give you my word, because that's all very Game of Thrones. I will not pledge allegiance to two queens at the same time kind of action.
I like cars. What are you talking about?
I like cars too.
Anyway, so I'm not going to give my word, but I'm going to give my declaration that the engine might go in today.
Might.
Hang on, we've said that about 4 times before.
Might go in,
yes, no, I declare to the 7 kingdoms that today this Mira engine will be inserted into the dragon's mouth.
Have you been playing Wizards of Wollongong again?
No, I have not.
You have, haven't you?
I don't.
I'm going to go and slay the orc and play the dragon, WSDE, the spacebar.
I've never slayed the orc, ever. Never, ever played World of Warcraft.
Dragon? You just said pledging allegiance to something. What's that?
No, that's a different thing, man.
That's
not
the Mira.
the Wollongong of Buddha. I don't have time for playing games, man. I'm too busy
Playing mirrors.
playing minis and
So,
mirrors and other
let's play
cars that
mirrors.
no one cares about.
Benny's going to make some mad fuel lines and brake lines.
He's
We're
good at
going to
that.
do the fuel tank. We're going to reassemble all our stuff. We're going to smash
We're
it in
going to put
car.
the engine in the car
gonna
and
be
we're going to
good.
drive it today. Is it
What?
going to drive today, Benny, under its own?
No way.
It's driving
We're gonna
today.
push
It's
it.
been affirmed.
We're going to push it under our power of
Anyway,
something.
let's go before the wall is breached.
What are you talking about? Yes, and all going well. Check it out. It's going to work. It's going to work.
Here you go, Marty. I got a big one coming for you, mate.
Oh, really?
Yep.
It'll match the other one I've got.
There you go.
Thank you.
Can you take it all?
Yep, I've got it.
Take the whole thing?
I'm holding it. Oh, I hit it on something.
I'll come under here and I'll stick my fingers up there as well to hold it in.
While we're busy fiddling with the rear end, Mechanical Stig is creating a custom brake line which will run from the booster all the way to the new rear end. He's also going to repair the fuel feed lines which were busted up when the car got turned from one piece into two.
So the next very exciting job is putting the engine into the subframe. Now this here was literally, some parts of it anyway were falling apart when we touched it. But it's now been repaired, which is amazing. So we can use it and painted black, which is extra cool.
So there was a bunch of bits on this. There was a lot of just surface corrosion. Once I actually ground it back, it wasn't that bad. It was some flaky stuff. Up the front here, there was a few bits that were pretty sad. So I've replaced that metal, dug it out. I've treated inside and outside the entire thing with phosphorus and then ground it back. And then it's got a layer of paint on it, which should be really tough. It's the same as what's in the engine bay.
Yeah.
The other mad bonus is Australian Mira and JDM Mira engine mounts are identical, which means you can buy them at the local parts shop, which is really cool. So we've got some engine mounts, which means our motor won't be rocking around too much. I think this one's gearbox and goes over here somewhere.
Amazing.
There. And then that's the back engine mount that sits on the engine that goes into that one.
Yep.
That holds the motor. And then we've got this one that sits at the front there somehow, I think like that. Which means
all new.
we can put our engine on it.
It's all G.
Now we haven't.
It's amazing.
We're not going to pull that engine apart. We're just going to run it as is.
Well, we know it works.
We know it works, and we've already done so much. I'm just keen to get the motor in there and fire it up and actually drive the thing around again. So
a lot of the things that we would want to do anyway, like obviously we've got to do coolant and stuff again, drop the oil, filter, spark plugs if we need to, like all of that stuff we can do once it's in there anyway.
Yep. And so last episode also we found that control box, which is somewhere.
The one that was like, we thought was like coilover control box.
So first I thought it was an ECU, then I noticed it said KYB, which is suspension. And then right at the end we saw the electric power steering rack. So that's the control box that controls the electric power steering rack.
Yeah,
so it's some weird 90s
That's
electric
so
assisted.
90s.
It's probably going to break. Both Turbo Yoda and Mechanical Stig both just looked at it and went, nah, man. But I want to keep it because I want to keep it JDM. I want the same experience.
Yeah.
So that's going to go back on, including the other cross member that sits across the back here that the steering rack goes onto.
Yeah.
So we're going to start figuring out how it all goes back together.
Yeah, nice.
So just having a look at this engine while it's out of the car. So we've got the engine here, we've got the gearbox, and then this transfer case, which is what essentially turns it from a front-wheel drive car into an all-wheel drive car or four-wheel drive car, is this transfer case thing. But we're looking at this vacuum line and thinking maybe that's a breather, because a lot of these kind of diffs and stuff have breathers so that they don't pressurize, but that's what that is. So this vacuum line goes into this funny-looking banana, which looks like a vacuum reservoir, and then into the diff. And the only thing we can think is that either under boost pressure or vacuum, it controls what the center diff does. But we're not going to know until we put it all together and see how it behaves on the street, on the dyno, stuff like that. Things that we never really got a chance to try while we were sideways at a track. Oh, wow.
A Yaris would not be this rusty, I'm just saying.
A Yaris would be so boring.
Were you saying something interesting over there, Martin?
Yeah, it was. But that's pretty interesting too.
I can't get these bolts out. Like, these bolts will require to be drilled out,
yeah,
or
fine.
an angle grinder or something, because they're just...
It's all good. Oh gee.
The rust is real.
Being that the K-frame is lighter than the engine and box that sits on it, we're going to attach our new mounts to the frame and then lift it up onto the engine. Meanwhile, Benny has got the lines running in place up the back of the car, so next we can install our rear end.
So one of the problems I'm having is that some of these bolts that were going through the cross member that was quite corroded are also corroded themselves and therefore useless for holding engine mounts or anything else on. So I'm trying to find some out of a stash of Cresta bolts, old Subaru Liberty bolts and random hardware shop ones to find ones that fit perfectly, and I've got to make sure I use the same grade of bolt as well because it's holding an engine in. And we've managed to find 4 or 5, but there's one I still don't have.
And a bunch of washers from a Yaris over here, Martin.
Not from a Yaris, and you know it. Do you know why they're not from a Yaris?
Because Yaris's are so reliable, you'd never take it apart, and therefore no washers would end up anywhere except for on the car.
Yeah, and no one cares enough about them to ever do anything like this.
But unlike Daihatsu's, so this is a big crate full of Daihatsu stuff, including the hooks that will hang our car off when we're finished, and probably, Martin, all the bolts we'll ever need.
Yeah, I should just use these ones because that's engine
That's exactly what we need. Amazing.
That's shocking.
Oh, wow. So the engine is now on the subframe, which means now it's time to take the fuel tank back out because we inserted it prematurely because we've got to put some hose on the top of it that's not there, and we're just generally going to move it out of the way. Because I believe, Marty, we're starting to do the rear end now, is that right?
Yeah, well the engine is back on the subframe, so all the front end stuff's ready to go, but Benny's still doing brake lines and fuel lines. So while he's doing that, we're going to put in our suspension arms up here and sort of position our rear end and make sure that's all going to work. We've also got the springs that were in our mad little JDM drift.
Yeah, awesome.
So our mad lowering springs, which we'll put in here, and the spring seats I got from Japan.
Yeah, great.
We're now up to fitting all the parts that wouldn't fit to the floor of our Aussie car. Luckily, after months of work installing the JDM floor, we can now do the fun part and bolt it all together. Once the arms are in place, we can put in the rear diff housing, which is what makes four-wheel drive possible.
So this is a momentous occasion because this is
what it's all for, Martin.
This is why we're doing it, to stick a diff in the back of a Mira. So hopefully it fits. Okay, so it turns out we put the lower arms in upside down so they don't actually line up with here. We've got no reference, we're just sort of guessing and putting it together like a Lego. But if we flip these around the other way, then it should bolt up. The top ones are fine and they're in and they're attached. Not bolted in, but they're attached. So I'm gonna flip these arms and then hopefully it will all bolt together. Suspensions and everything, most excellent. So now that we've put our diff in and the arms are attached, the next step is to install some shocks which will actually hold the back of the diff up. I don't have any springs. I don't know where the rear springs are.
We've lost them. But here's what's interesting, Martin. KYB.
You made the steering.
Making what we've also since realised is the electronic power steering control module for Daihatsu, if it is in fact the same company.
So many.
And now these can go in, but we've legit lost the springs, which kind of sucks because we bought them when we went to Japan and put them in this car. And now we've got some
They'll be somewhere.
rad instructions here.
So these will sit, these are specific for the all-wheel drive Mira, and they'll sit in the diff here and in the body there and hold it all together. So now, should be able to pull the jack out and the diff should stay there. There it goes. Held in by shock absorbers.
With our rear end installed, Benny can finish his custom brake line and then we can get our front K-frame ready to install. But before we can do that, we need to clean up the bolts and the washers that hold it to the car. The K-frame is ready, and now we have to reverse our removal process and get the car up high so we can slide the engine in and lift it into position.
Cool, and then the front ones, just... Yes, she's in!
Well done, Martin.
Fantastic, look at that.
The engine is in, but we want the car to roll, so it's going to need shocks to hold the wheels up. Our existing lowered springs will fit perfectly onto our brand new struts, and with the strut tops installed, they can be fitted back to the car. Next, we can start to piece together the rest of the suspension parts that came off the K-frame and put them back into the car. The hubs and drive shafts don't need to be split to be reinstalled, they just need to be seated back into the gearbox.
Oh shit! What happened there?
You alright?
Yeah, I'm fine, yeah. It's actually the, oh no. What fell off? That axle stand dropped. Like it's still in position, but it dropped. Which means maybe I pushed up on this.
Oh shit.
I think that's what happened with my leg. I didn't realise I pushed up on here.
Lucky there was 3 other stands under there, Martin.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have like killed you,
No, it would have hurt though.
but it would have hurt.
Because it's got an engine in it, so it's heavy again.
It was a close call, my own fault, but mostly a good reminder to check and recheck your safety gear like jacks and jack stands. With the drive shafts now seated in the gearbox, we can attach the hubs onto the struts.
We've made heaps of progress. We are running out of time, but engine is in. Front suspension is mostly in. I've lost one of the bolts, so I'm trying to find something that'll work. The rear end is in. We have no springs. Benny's almost finished doing the fuel system, and he has finished the brake lines. So we're going to put the fuel tank back in. And then there's a whole lot of little sort of picky bits and pieces to complete, plugging things in and just little things. Which I'm going to spend the next bit of time doing, because I'm super keen to see this thing back on the road, or at least rolling. I'll be happy when it rolls, and when it drives, I will be ecstatic. Done on the Mira, and it's come a long way. It's got an engine, it's got a subframe, it's got suspension bits, and yeah, now is the exciting part because of this thing.
So this is the thing that makes magic possible. This is connecting the front of the car, where the engine lives, to the back of the car, where the wheels spin. This basically means this is what it's all been for. I mean, we just said that before when we put the diff in, and then we said it when we put the engine in, and we'll probably keep saying it when we put every part in. But this is actually physically what these last 10 episodes have been all about, which is about making that engine go inside that Australian shell so it'll spin the rear wheels.
Yeah, it's gonna do a bit of that action. Not in the way. Come on, all drive.
It's very, when the shaft is so long, it's hard when there's 4 hands on it at once.
Yes.
Look at that though.
It's in.
Amazing. It's too long, man.
Don't even joke about that.
No, it's about 2 inches too long.
It's too long.
What?
The shit's too long.
What?
The wheelbase of the Japanese one is longer, bro.
Bullshit.
Nope.
It can't be.
Yep.
Doors the same, bro. Don't be a dickhead.
But
No, it is too long, Benny, by about an inch.
I'm not playing.
We can get it cut down though by someone.
no, it's all good. It just wasn't in the thing properly.
Yeah, well done, bro.
I'm wise to your games, mate.
How's it feeling, mate?
Mats! Imagine that's what it's going to be doing. Mats! Mats! Get excited, people! All-wheel drive, look at that! Look at it go!
I'm excited.
Benny's excitement.
I'm excited.
Look at it go, man! So cool. Do you reckon an all-wheel drive Yaris would do that?
Well, yeah, because it's all drive.
Oh, yeah.
All that's left to do is mount up the drive shaft centre bearing into the floor of the car and then stand back and admire this flawless piece of early 90s engineering.
It looks like a lot's been done, and a lot
That's
has
because
been done.
a lot has been done,
But
Martin.
then there's heaps of stuff that's little fiddly stuff that takes just as long as the big stuff.
Exactly.
Like Benny was doing with the brake lines and the fuel lines.
Yep. But by episode 33, we should have most of those things done. The engine's in, which is amazing. Wiring's getting done.
The wheels
Suspension's in. The diff's in. The main shaft is in that we thought didn't fit, but it does. So all in all, a great day.
Excellent
Thank you,
day.
Mechanical Stig, for your guidance and mechanical wisdom.
Thanks for the hangout.
So now I have a massive bucket full of bolts that I have only some idea where they go. Another bucket full of parts that only have some idea where they go. An engine that's not plumbed in at all. And an interior that's not in, and wiring that's not done. So I'm gonna get cracking on all that to try and get this thing started and moving under its own power.
And how good is it to put that much effort into something that was going to be thrown in the bin?
I'll throw your Yaris in the bin, mate.
I'm serious.
I'm gonna go get like
I thought I was joking. I'm not joking.
I think I want those
Serious,
mad
man.
chili fries that you get. Benny, do you like chili
A
fries?
shaker fry.
No, chili fries.
Are they?
Yeah,
Oh.
Oh, right. I want chili fries.